I get itchier staring at a rack full of servers and wondering whether you should throw another piece of hardware into the mix, especially when a bad buy can sit idle for months and waste budget you could have put toward a better backup solution or a faster workstation. You don't want to spend on a NAS that ends up gathering dust because it's too complex, underpowered for your workloads, or just doesn't fit the space you have. Link is in the description if you want to check the product details on Amazon. So let's break down exactly what the Synology RackStation RS820 Plus bundle brings to the table, where it shines, and where it might leave you reaching for an alternative. First off, the RS820 Plus is a 4-bay rack mount unit that ships with a 16TB SATA hard drive set, a modest 18GB of DDR4 RAM, and the familiar Synology Disk Station Manager, DSM, operating system preloaded. The bundle also includes a rail kit, which means you can slide the whole thing straight into a standard 19-inch rack without having to buy third-party mounting hardware. That convenience alone saves a few minutes of planning, but the real question is whether the hardware inside can keep up with the kind of day-to-day tasks you'll throw at it. If you're a small to medium business that needs a reliable file share for a handful of workstations, a central place to store surveillance footage, or a low-maintenance backup target for virtual machines, the RS820 Plus checks most of those boxes. The Intel Atom C3538 quad-core processor isn't a gaming chip, but for file serving, media streaming, and even light virtualization, it's more than adequate. I've seen a few IT managers set up Plex on a similar model and stream 4K content to a handful of devices without hiccups, simply because DSM handles transcoding efficiently when the CPU isn't overloaded. The 18GB of RAM, split between two memory modules, gives a little breathing room for DSM's background services, snapshots, and the occasional Docker container. In practice, you'll notice quick folder navigation in the web interface, and file transfers over a 1GB network feel smooth for typical Office documents and media files. Now, let's talk about the practical side of installing this thing. The box arrives sealed, and while the hard drives are already in the bays, the RAM sticks are loose, and the drive trays need a little poppin'. If you've ever opened a Synology desktop model, you'll recognize the process. Just pull the front panel, slide the trays, and snap the drives into place. The memory modules slot into two DIMM sockets on the motherboard. You'll need a small Phillips head screwdriver, but no soldering or firmware flashing. The rail kit attaches with a few screws to the rack's vertical rails, and the unit slides right in. It's a straightforward setup that most IT staff can finish in under an hour, assuming they have basic hardware experience. What about the hidden trade-offs? One thing that catches people off guard is that while the bundle includes 16TB of storage, it's all on a single drive type SATA HDDs. If your workload involves heavy random I/O, like database hosting or multiple simultaneous VM backups, you'll feel the latency compared to a unit equipped with SSD cache or NVMe slots. The RS820 Plus does support SSD cache, but you have to add those drives yourself, which adds cost and another step in the configuration. For a purely archival or media library role, the SATA drives are perfectly fine. They're cheap per gigabyte and provide the capacity you need for long-term retention. Another practical limitation is the network interface. The model ships with a single 1GB port. For many small offices that's enough, but if you're planning on a multi-user environment where several people are pulling gigabytes of data at once, you might quickly saturate that link. Synology does offer a 10GB upgrade module for the RS820 Plus, but again, that's an extra purchase. If you anticipate needing higher throughput, say, for editing large video files directly from the NAS, you'll want to budget for that upgrade or look at a higher tier model that includes it out of the box. So who should actually consider buying this bundle? If you already have a rack and need a compact, low-maintenance storage appliance that can be up and running with minimal fuss, the RS820 Plus is a solid choice. It's especially appealing for organizations that want the DSM ecosystem. Its intuitive web UI, robust package center, and built-in backup solutions like Hyper Backup and Snapshot Replication. The bundled 16TB gives you immediate usable space, so you won't have to scramble for drives right after unboxing. It also fits nicely into a mixed environment where you might already be using other Synology devices. The DSM interface is consistent across the product line, which reduces training time for staff. On the flip side, skip it if you're looking for a high-performance, all-flash solution for heavy virtualization or large-scale media production. The Atom processor, while reliable, can become a bottleneck when you start stacking multiple Docker containers, running intensive backup jobs, or serving dozens of users simultaneously. In that scenario, a higher-end model with an Intel Xeon or AMD Ryzen CPU and native